Well, hello, everyone. This is Matt Schaub with another installment of our Prime TSR's Digital 2.0 series. With this series, we're interviewing the best and brightest modern senior digital executives, trying to get their perspective on the importance and role that technology plays within their organizations, as well as our everyday lives. Joining me today is Matt Meier. Matt is the Chief Digital and Data Officer at Driven Brands. Matt, why don't we start out? Give us just a quick introduction.
Yeah, well, thanks, Matt. Well, first, I'll introduce the company because not many folks know Driven Brands. In fact, transparently, I hadn't heard of them when I was going through the interview process, but you'll recognize our portfolio. So we've grown to become the largest operator in North America in automotive aftermarket services. Company started with the combination of Maaco and Meineke, which are very well-known brands in the industry, and then have since grown into the car wash market, quick lube market under Take 5, several paint, collision, and glass brands beyond that, CarStar, Abra being a couple, and now we're heavily getting into, through acquisition, into the glass market. It's an interesting kind of portfolio of needs-based services, consumer services. We happen to be in automotive. We don't really kind of act like an automotive company. The nature of the business is such that, when Matt shows up in one of our shops, you share a lot about yourself. We learn a lot about your vehicle history, your needs, the state of your vehicle. And thus, as a natural consequence, we've established a really rich set of data assets. And my role was really established with a few things in mind, but one principal aspect of it is how to activate those insights in the marketplace and establish a platform, a digital platform across our needs-based services portfolio.
Yeah, that's great. It's great. It's super interesting context. The data, the end user experience, all of that are very pertinent ingredients to what we're talking about today. Let's jump right into the questions then. When you reflect on your past, when you think back on your career, what has been the biggest lesson that you've taken away regarding this digital transformation that companies go through?
I mean, there's myriad, and I've made a lot of mistakes, but if I was to kind of summarize the lessons, probably one principal one is it's got very little to do with the technology, particularly now. I mean, with the advent of cloud, platform services, software as a service, AI, ML, data environments. You can spin these things up and down in seconds, where it used to be the art or the science used to be about all the kind of nerdy plumbing. Now you're much less focused on that. And it's more about, do you have an organization and a team that understands the business? Are you highly aligned on the business outcomes you're looking to drive? And then sort of working backwards in terms of what technology is required. So it's really more about sort of understanding your business and being able to drive change across a diverse set of people who may not even understand art of the possible. So it's much more, it's much less about technology foundation than it is about really understanding people and organizations and how to drive results commercially and operationally within an enterprise.
It's great. It's refreshing. We tend to be so technology centric, and that's a theme I've been hearing more and more. And I'm glad that we're thinking about it that way.
You still need an awesome team of nerds, but you need a lot more than that, for certain.
I also feel like we're starting to take some of it for granted because it's so easier. It's kind of fun to reflect on the past and think about how challenging the technology aspect, the plumbing used to be a lot more challenging, definitely. But that's a great lesson, and I think it's important that we play that back over and over again. There's lots of terms that we throw around too. This is a big hang up for me. The words are innovation, transformation, and I've noticed terms overloaded or used in different ways. What's your take? What's the meaning of all that kind of word salad to you?
Interesting. Digital transformation to me doesn't mean anything by itself. Essentially, it kind of goes back to what I just said. It's really driving kind of disruptive outcomes, growth in the marketplace, creation of new business models, ecosystem plays. And commercially, it's all about really those experiences with your customer, sort of hyper-focused on the experience you're bringing to bear for them, whether that be a direct-to-consumer business or B2B, it really doesn't matter. Every decision you make should be driven on what is going to make somebody's life better that I'm selling a service to. And thus, I think about kind of innovation and transformation with that lens. If I look inward, it's about how can I apply technology to drive like operational efficiency in simple terms, like hyper focus on making the best decisions to sort of drive out costs, drive quality up in your organization and the products that you're bringing to market, those types of things. So we try not to use many of the buzzwords that don't mean much and try to kind of orient on really what are the outcomes we're looking to drive commercially and operationally.
I love the adjective on that too, disruptive outcomes.
Right.
It's a little more compelling, and I think it's a little more obvious what the intent is when you say
something that doesn't exist, essentially, that's going to differentiate you in the marketplace.
Great takeaway for me. I'm going to start using that now too. Disruptive outcomes. We kind of talked about like the past. Now, when we look forward, there's this continued journey that we're all on. What do you feel like is going to have the biggest impact, or what's your sight set on looking forward with regards to this digital journey?
I think the one reality is, essentially it's going to be all about sort of people. Am I building an organization that kind of plays both sides? Deep understanding of the technology and how to apply it, deep understanding of the business, and can bridge the gap consistently and sustainably. Understanding art of the possible, but understanding what's practical and understanding what matters to the enterprise that you operate in. Through COVID and the Great Resignation and all the things people talk about, it's about building a highly engaging environment where people want to come to work for Driven and they want to stay at Driven, and you're getting the best partnerships in the marketplace and you're getting the best people in the marketplace on those two dimensions. That, I think, is going to be, for everybody, the principal gating factor to how much, quote unquote, transformation you can drive and sustain, essentially.
When you look at companies around you, anything surprise you? Do you see anything like that's very positive that companies are doing? Or is anybody not living up to an expectation that you're surprised that they're not doing some of the things that you would expect out of them? Who's really embracing this?
It's a super interesting question. Without maybe calling out any individual company names, maybe a couple sectors that are
that's a good
surprising. Like I would say consumer durables, and I would say kind of B2B heavy industry. There's a lot of companies that don't get credit for how innovative they are. And I've operated in many of those environments over my career. I would say the marriage of digital experience and physical experience, let's take the appliance industry, for example. That is a highly complex value stream. And companies that do that well don't get credit for being as digitally innovative as they actually are. Amount of insights, like embedding like AI and ML capabilities within like a product on let's say a tractor or aircraft engine. I mean, the amount of insights that you can drive from the data that just is flying off of these machines all day, every day. It's awesome. And that is, I find that hyper intriguing. I would say another sector that is really doing awesome stuff broadly, and there's probably some obvious examples, maybe I'd even give you a couple, but the retail and kind of quick serve restaurant industries, where you're marrying up like digital experience and then sort of the in-store experience in really compelling ways for the consumer, hyper focus on operations and efficiency and repeatability within the store, and linking that in the digital experience for the customer. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. Starbucks is an obvious example, but you think about pizza delivery, you think about sandwich shops. I mean, there's a lot of neat things that these companies, they're
turning into vending machines.
Totally. They're like almost like digitally native companies essentially anymore. You can almost argue. So that's a couple sectors that, without orienting on the negative, that I think are actually more positive than most people give credit, essentially.
Yep. And I also feel, would you agree? It's like, I feel like the COVID world kind of gave that a kick, like in a good way. Like it really forced some hands.
I totally agree with that. I mean, that gets a lot of play, but I think it's hyper true. Those business models just became self-evident almost.
Right.
During the last few years.
Definitely. Cool. Super interesting, super insightful things to think about. We're going to wrap up with the hot seat. Rapid fire. I've got some topics I'm going to throw at you, and we're interested in your kind of knee-jerk reaction to these things. These are your reactions can range from a hype, like I don't believe the hype, to it's the real deal, something that you feel like we should all be embracing and something that's going to make a big difference in our world. And then WTF, meaning I don't even know what this thing is. We'll start out with AI.
Real. I think it's more the application and figuring out what those killer use cases are, but real.
Yeah, it's kind of, we lead off with a softball. Everybody has that lean towards real on AI. Next up, crypto.
Actually, I think the fundamentals are real. Blockchain and how to apply that, real. The hype, though, it's ridiculous relative to all the different variants and the markets. The markets are a pretend market to me. So it's like hyper hype on that side, but I think that there's some real applications that are yet to be unlocked for sure.
Yep. Agreed. I'm bouncing around on these. I want to give you the easy ones first, and we'll go to the harder ones next. I'm going to build up the remote work world that we live in, like that we've embraced over these last couple of years. Like, think about that one going forward. Where do you see that?
I think for me, super real.
Yeah.
I think it's unlocking the opportunity to, get talent everywhere. I do think that there's fundamental awesomeness associated with working in person, no question. But to allow for a very much hybrid and flexible workforce, I think is going to be a differentiator for most companies going forward. Yeah. And not everybody's embracing that. I don't blame anybody for the positions they take, but to me, it's super real.
Yeah. Where are you right now? Home or in the office?
I'm home. So company is headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm in Southwest Michigan, and I can get to Charlotte on a direct from South Bend in an hour and a half and be in the office by 8. So nice. I'm a perfect example, maybe. Yeah,
perfect. Okay, I got 2 more. These are the fun ones. Next one, metaverse.
Ridiculous. There may be an application somewhere down the road, but right now it's like at best hype to WTF.
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
I think we've seen more WTF on that one.
Yeah. Video games and stuff like that, maybe I could see, but I don't know.
Yeah. The last one's fun because we thought of this before this individual made it into the news. They weren't as prevalent in the news as they are right now. And it's Elon Musk. What do you think of Elon?
Man, genius, disruptor. I want to say WTF just because.
I know.
But honestly, man, he makes markets and he's orchestrating them almost like independently. It's really super interesting.
Yeah, he's a little bit of everything, is what it feels like, and that's what makes him special.
Yeah. But I want to say WTF.
Yeah, I know, especially recently. Matt, this has been great. I appreciate your time, your perspective, your opinions here. Again, I think you've given us all some insights and a lot to think about. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
No, likewise, Matt. It was great meeting you, and I enjoyed it.